The final 10. That's all we got left. Thanks for tuning in again. These, again, are just my favorites, and anything that's between 1 and 200 could probably be in my top 10 at any time. Think of all the great records that I did not include. I mean, I could look right to the right and see T-Rex Electric Warrior. I don't think that made my top 100. It's a phenomenal record. I could go on and on. Gillian Welch, The Harrow and the Harvest. I don't think that made it. A bunch of Tom Waits records. So Bill Callahan, I'm sure one of those would have squeezed in at some point. Paul McCartney, Ram. And I could go on and on and on. Lucinda Williams' first record. But here we're going to wrap it up. First, just a couple things, sort of housekeeping things. I have mentioned the donations to Backline. We have now raised over $540 for Backline. Backline is committed to offering mental health services for the music industry. So not just artists, but tour managers, basically anybody in the music business. They're still young. I do serve on the board, so I wouldn't say there's a personal interest, but I do whatever I can to support these guys. So backline.care, I would check them out. One more mental health organization that I'm on the board of is called Bring Change to Mind. So if you search them, the organization was founded by the actress Glenn Close, and I have been working with them for 3+ years. We are focused on teens in the United States, so we open up programs where students in their high schools can feel safe talking about mental health issues. We've seen some wonderful results out of that. We have hundreds and hundreds of programs, and we're looking to build more. So every dollar, or open more, so every dollar that goes to Bring Change to Mind goes towards opening more schools, as well as keeping the organization obviously humming along. So two organizations that are very dear to me. For Backline, every dollar that I contribute or donate is in my brother's name. So again, I thank you all enough. Every subscription gets $1. And again, we're somewhere over 540. And I'm going by the peak number. So I think we hit a number and then a couple people unsubscribe. Maybe it's bots or something, or maybe it's just people who are like, these videos are awful. So if it goes back down, I go by the highest number. So at the end of 2021, we'll see where that number sits. And maybe I could have somebody from Backline come on here. Somebody who actually works on the day-to-day operations to talk about what they do. That could be fun. So thanks again for that. Again, every dollar or every subscriber goes sends $1 to Backline.care. Secondly, before I jump into this finale, I am going to start doing giveaways at the end of videos. I may do it every video or close to every video. I'll also get back to talking about records that I wish more people knew about, which I have put on pause as I do this top 100. But I have a lot of duplicates, and sometimes I usually go record shopping every Friday on record day release, and sometimes I'll just pick up 2 of something and do a giveaway to folks here. I'll probably do some silly you have to say something and guess my favorite song from a certain album in the comments. The first person to do it, I don't know, something like that. just to add some flavor to it. Mostly be from duplicate records that I have, which I have many, having collected for so many years. Sometimes I've bought the reissue, so maybe the original I'll put up for one of you folks to have. But we'll see. I'll be creative with it. I'm looking right now. I have Bruce Springsteen Chimes of Freedom EP, 2 copies. Don't need 2 copies, so we'll start doing that. So look forward to that in my next video. But now, top 10. Let's just get rolling. At number 10 is the Beatles' White Album. The Beatles' self-titled. It came out in 1968. Yep. This is... This is one of those records that's hard for me to describe why it's in my top 10. I don't listen to this record that often, but whenever I do, I'm just floored. And I listened to it as I was working on this top 100, and I probably went from somewhere in the 50s or 60s all the way up to the top 10. It's just... I can't explain it. It sounds brand new every time, and there's like songs that I forget. It's so expansive, if that's the right word. And I also have, we all have these memories of records in certain places. And I remember being in college. I was in college up in Boston, and a girl that I was friends with who I had a little bit of a crush on, we were driving to the library at our college to study for a final or something. I think it was a final. Maybe we were working on a paper together. I can't remember the details, but I remember she picked me up and I got into her car and she was playing this. And there was just something about the moment, like somebody that early stages of me thinking maybe I like this person. And like we stopped and I think we got coffee and then drove over to school, and then afterwards I think we met, we met friends for drinks. It was just one of those days where an album sort of finds its way into the day and you never forget it. Nothing ever happened between myself and that woman. It was just that day. I think she was seeing somebody, and I don't remember, but it was never more than just those few hours that we spent together, but I never forgot those few hours. There's something about, being in this car with somebody, I thought maybe I had some feelings for, and she was playing the perfect record. It was on cassette. And I just remember being very happy. So that's the White Album. In at number 10. Number 9 is my favorite Big Star record. Amazing that this record, I think when it came out, or when it was done, it wasn't even released. It took until 1978 to be released. So this is Big Star's third. This is obviously without Chris Bell. This is Alex Chilton. This is their final record. They did another one, In Space or something, and they've done like a few live records, and they're putting out reissues all the time. But this is just, how on earth did this not get a proper release when it was due? And I think I have that story right, but it's been released under multiple names. Third is this one. It's also listed under Sisters Lovers. I think Rykodisc put that out as a reissue. But there is a darkness and a spirituality to this record that is unlike any record that I've ever heard. From the top, Strike It Noel, For You, Kiss of Me, You Can't Have Me, Nighttime, Blue Moon, Take Care. I've mentioned it. That's the whole entire first side, and all those songs are great. Side 2, Jesus Christ. I mean, what a song that is. Thank You, Friends. That comes later. Holocaust, Oh Dana, Kangaroo. I could be number one. All these could be. I'm repeating myself. There has been sort of a touring band of the Big Star third record for a good the last 10 to 15 years. And I saw it in New York. I think it was 2012 or 13. And I remember I was going through a tough time. I remember I got to New York and I hadn't slept much the night before, if at all. And something about this record just helped. I remember they closed, it was like a star-studded cast. It was Matthew Sweet, there's Mike Mills from REM, the Posies guys, Stringfellow and An Hour. And then to close the show, they covered the Box Tops, which Alex Chilton was in. That's the band he was in when he was a teenager. And they closed with The Letter, and Michael Stipe came out and performed it. It's a magical night. I was with my friend Sharish. We went out for pizza and a beer. And I just remember, I love that record so much. There was a live recording release that also has the guys from Wilco, Pat Sansone, and Jeff Tweedy. So just check out that record. Number 8 is my favorite Beatles record, Abbey Road. This is the one that I turn to the most. My brother once named his dog Abby after this. My other brother, not Lane. This is, I would say, the White Album is only 2 behind, but this is far and away my favorite Beatles record. Something, I Want You, She's So Heavy, Here Comes the Sun. Probably my favorite Beatles moment is Polythene Pam. Is that how you say it? Polythene Pam. Pam, and She Came In Through the Bathroom Window. And then Golden Slumbers, Carry That Weight, the end. This came out, Abbey Road is 69. And I don't think there's much more I need to say. People know this record, and it is my favorite Beatles record, and probably always will be. Next, number 7 is my favorite Nick Drake record. So Nick Drake's 3 records, he put out 3 records, they all made my top 20. This is Brighter Later. Perfection, top to bottom. Has One of These Things First, which might be my favorite Drake song. Northern Sky is right up there. Fly. Just Nick Drake, it's just unimaginable to me that when he was putting out these records, there was almost no reception from fans. I think the critics liked him, and he's one of the greatest ever. If you ask me in music, I don't know classical. I hope to learn it someday, but when you talk about the greatest, Dylan, Miles Davis, Johnny Cash, Ray Charles, the James Brown, Springsteen, Nick Drake belongs in that conversation. Chuck Berry. This is just, I absolutely love this record so much. And it does so much for my mental health. I talk a lot about mental health here in music, is obviously what I turn to in addition to meditation the most. But that record, when I'm in a bind or if I'm stressed, I'll put that on and it transports me. Excuse me, you can see here, I'm getting a little hoarse voice. Too many records. This is a coffee shop in Maryland, which is in the town where my mother and stepfather lived. And when my stepfather passed, not long ago, last July, I used to go there every morning, and the people were so nice to me. It's called Rise Up in Edgewater, Maryland. And this was during the pandemic when everybody was stressed and you didn't know if you should be going in places. And I would go in, everybody was masked up. I think at the time we were like 10 feet apart. And during a time, I've lost 2 people in the last year. It's been a horrible year for many, many of us. Many of us have lost people, and many of us have had challenges with respect to work and employment and mental health. And so we're all going to come out of this with stories. But I did lose 2 people that were very, very dear to me. And I'll just always love this coffee shop because they were so. My stepfather was my first major loss of my life. I lost a friend from high school in 2012 who I hadn't spoken to in years. We were very close in high school, and that was also unexpected. It was a car accident. And I lost my grandmother in the early 2000s, who I really, really cared about. But my stepfather was the first one that was, you get that feeling inside. That with my brother, I feel still every day. Multiple times throughout the day. There's certain types of loss that I am now experiencing for the first time that it takes the mind a long time to catch up to what has happened, and I'm working on it. So thank you to Rise Up. I bought this coffee mug, I bought a t-shirt, I think I bought a hat just because I wanted to show some support. So next, we are down to number 6. This is the record that changed it all for me in '94 when music became much more than just a deep love, which it was. Then it just went off the charts. And this is Uncle Tupelo's swan song, their major label debut and final record, Anodyne. Of course, Jay Farrar of Sunvolt, Jeff Tweedy of Wilco, John Sturrett of Wilco, Ken Coomer, who went on to put out a record with Swag, and he's done a lot of session work, I believe. But this is a masterpiece, and I've told this story so many times, but I'm going to give you a very abbreviated version. 1994, I'm pretty sure it was Big Head Todd. I don't know why I'm suddenly getting so serious. Big Head Todd and the Monsters were playing at my college. We had tickets, and my friend Cubby, he had his closest friend come down from Maine. And when he arrived, I remember he was one of the quietest people I'd ever met. His name was Andrew. And he was sort of sitting next to me as we were, drinking before going to see Big Head Todd. And he asked me, he hadn't spoken to any, he was so quiet. And he said, "Hey, I'm going to see this band at the Paradise." I said, "Who's the band?" So I used to go to the Paradise all the time. And he said, "Their name's Uncle Tupelo." And I said, "I never heard of them." He said, "I have an extra ticket." I said, "Nah, I already got plans. Like, I'm going to go with Brian and these other guys to go see Big Head Todd." We stayed at Big Head Todd for 2 songs, if I believe, max. It might have been after the first song. Brian and I looked at each other and we were like, "Nah, let's get out of here." The next morning, Andrew came in. We all met up again, probably get up around noon. We were part of the party crew at our college, or maybe afternoon, 1 or 2. Went up to the same spot, and I saw Andrew, and I said, "Oh, how was that show last night?" He said, "Man, incredible." And I said, "Can you play the band for me?" He said, "Sure." He went out to his car, and there's no digital music then, got the CD of this, and went straight to track number 6, which is New Madrid. And I remember I was sitting across from Brian. I think Andrew was to my left. And Brian and I were really connected on music. We still are. And I remember the first few notes of the song, we looked at each other and, what is this? So we went to Tower Records, either Tower or Newberry Comics in Boston. And I think they only had Anodyne, this record. I later, that summer, ordered from my record store in New Jersey the other 3 Uncle Tupelo records. And then everything just, my whole world changed. It's the reason why I got into music, at least for most of my career. And it's because Andrew, I don't know, maybe I would have discovered them later on my own, but to Andrew, Thank you. I still am so grateful. That was number 6. Top 5. We are in. The suspense must just be unreal. Number 5 is Born to Run. This is the record that really got it all started for me. My father used to play this a ton when we were kids. I was 4 when this came out, and I can remember still, must have been when I was 5 or 6, 7, hearing Jungle Land, hearing Meeting Across the River, 10th Avenue Freeze Out, and of course Thunder Road. I just cherish this record. Staying at my father's house, Springsteen reference right there, could be bumpy, and this record provided so much comfort. I could write a whole book about my childhood and Born to Run, which, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I've written a memoir, and I'm going to start releasing chapters from it. I haven't pursued publishing. I may do that. I don't know how to. You have to get an agent first. It's a cumbersome task, or at least cumbersome for me. But I'm going to start a Substack newsletter, I think, and start releasing a couple chapters in advance of actually releasing the book. I have one more edit to do. It's an incredibly personal book, a lot about music. So after the loss of my brother, it's been hard to get back to finish, but I'm going to give it my best in the next few months. But Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run could be number 1. It is number 1. Number 4. Oh, and that, did I already say that? Oh, Springsteen came out in 75. I don't know why I said I was 4. I was either 1 or 2 when that came out. I can't remember the month that it came out. But for the subsequent years, my father would play it probably through early 80s, all the time. But number 4 is another Bruce Springsteen record, his second album, The Wild, the Innocent, and the E Street Shuffle. I think this is my brother's favorite record of all time. He had such a love for this record. He would talk about Incident on 57th Street into Rosalita, and just how he just talked about Incident on 57th Street all the time, and we would get into his car and he would play it back to back with into Rosalita, and it was just magical. But 4th of July, Sandy, Kitty's Back. This, again, Bruce's second record also came out in 1973 after Greetings from Asbury Park. This came out just prior to me being born, maybe a month. I think it came out in September of 73. I was born in November. It's just 7 songs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yeah. And somehow this did not blow up when he released it. That didn't happen until 2 years later with Born to Run. But my 4th favorite record of all time, Bruce Springsteen's The Wild, the Innocent, and the E Street Shuffle. I'm gonna have another sip. Number 3 is Uncle Tupelo's Still Feel Gone. Came out in 91. So this was their second record. So after I discovered Anodyne, that summer I was home in New Jersey, and there was a record store one town over from us called Ramsey Books and Records. And I went and I ordered this, their first record, No Depression, and their third record, March 16th, 20th, 1992. I remember it was a different time back then in terms of how you got access to music. These were all released on Rockville Records, small independent, and they were hard to find. And I remember the wait to get those records was, I just wanted them so bad. And when they finally arrived, I remember I put in No Depression. I was like, oh, this is really good, but this is nothing like Anodyne. This is more punk, and this is a sound I've never heard. And then I put in this, and it just latched onto me. Opening with Gun, then Looking for a Way Out, Still Be Around, True to Life. It's a lot about trying to get out of your hometown. And I knew that feeling. I was not a fan of my hometown. It was, and it wasn't a bad place to be raised. Like where my mother raised me, I applaud her. It was safe. There were opportunities. The schools were good, but it felt way too sort of restrictive to me. I don't know how to explain it. It was almost entirely white. It was very conservative. And I remember I just wanted out of there. And this record sort of met that moment. So when I finished college, I did move back. Sort of like Springsteen saying that all he writes about is trying to get out of Asbury Park. And he now lives 10 minutes from where he grew up. But this, and it was just with small town, troubles and alcoholism. It just was everything that it just nailed me at the time. Like I can't explain it better than it just met the moment. Just like Born to Run did when I was a kid. And for many, 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 many years, I said this is my favorite record of all time. And it's number 3. So Uncle Tupelo's second album, Still Feel Gone, a masterpiece. Number 2, I almost want to stop and then let people guess what number 1 is. But number 2, probably the greatest straightforward rock and roll record of all time. Bob Dylan's Highway 61 Revisited came out in 1965. Like a Rolling Stone, one of the most famous songs ever. I still, every time I hear that, get a chill. The opening 10, 20 seconds, which I'm going to put this on right when I finish, which I should be done in a few minutes. It Takes a Lot to Laugh, It Takes a Train to Cry is one of my favorite Dylan songs. I know I mentioned a bunch off of Free Willin', but Desolation Road, Just Like Tom Thumb's Blues, Ballad of a Thin Man. This is just perfection. And this is obviously the Mobile Fidelity Sound Lab version, which I feel very fortunate to have. And it's the greatest, or the second greatest for me. There's not much more to say there, right? It's just a masterpiece. So we got one record left. I'm sure the people who know me know what it is, and maybe even the people who are just getting to know me via this channel know what it is. This record, no album in my entire life has had more of, has shaped the way I view the world. And parents, it changed the way I view my parents, it changed the way I view society, it changed the way I view America. It made me have such respect for my stepfather, who largely raised me with my mother. He was a police officer, and he was incredibly hardworking. And the life that he lived, just always working overtime hours, always trying to make our home better. I just heard all of that in this record. And I remember when I got to college and finally started taking education seriously, I used to quote lyrics from this record all the time. I think it was an introductory sociology class I took, it was a sociology class, and I remember the professor who had such a profound effect on me. I remember she kept saying, "You're relationship with that record and how it ties into income inequality. And just, I remember she made me, her name was Professor Udis Kessler. And I looked her up a few years ago and couldn't find her because I wanted to thank her. She instilled confidence in me with respect to school, and I went from a very mediocre student to almost straight A's. And it was because of connecting, it was honestly, a large part was connecting this record to what I was reading, what I was seeing for the first time. I was taking a lot of Black Studies and Civil Rights classes at the time, and this record just felt in the middle of all of that. So without further ado, I have a feeling people are going to think it's a different record, but it's Bruce Springsteen's Darkness on the Edge of Town. It came out in 1978, and I've already given the intro, or I've already given the summary. This is the most wide-ranging and important record that I've ever heard. Badlands, Racing in the Street, The Promised Land, Prove It All Night, Darkness on the Edge of Town, Factory. Whenever I hear that, I think of my stepfather. Just a blue-collar job. This great shot on the back. I could talk, and for some reason now I feel like I have nothing left to say because I don't want to be too hyperbolic, or I don't know. Darkness on the Edge of Town changed my life. It still changes my life. I think I mentioned in a previous video that I've only cried a few times at shows. I saw Bruce in Norway. I took a trip, this is 2016, to Norway because Springsteen was playing 2 shows there. He was playing in Oslo and in Trondheim. Trondheim is, I think, central-ish on the west side of Norway, if I'm not mistaken. And I went there with my friend Horst. We drove from Oslo up to Trondheim. Trondheim was the first show. It's a small town. And I remember we drove into the town and everybody, the doors were open, restaurants, everybody was playing Springsteen. And I remember somebody, I don't know if this is true, but somebody in one of the clubs or one of the bars that we went to before the show said that the largest concert ever in Trondheim was Elton John, and that was 15,000 people. And Bruce was expecting 40,000. So we went to the show that night, and he opened, because it was raining, with Creedence's Who'll Stop the Rain, and he followed it with Badlands. And right when Badlands kicked in, something overcame me. It was my childhood, it was all the social issues, it was the stuff I'd learned from this record, it was missing family, just some family issues at the time, and I was just crying, therapeutic, but got me in the moment. But this, what an absolute masterpiece. Bruce Springsteen's Darkness on the Edge of Town from 1978 is my favorite record of all time. And that wraps it up. I'll be back soon. Again, I'm going to start doing giveaways. I am going to continue to contribute to Backline. I may even do something for Bring Change to Mind. I may do something for other mental health initiatives that are important to me and that I believe in. There's a lot of stuff around mental health that I'm focused on. I'm trying to narrow my focus because you can't do it all. But what matters to me is the stigma, people being afraid to talk about their mental health, which I am one who used to be that way, and I'm now getting comfortable talking about my own, members of my family, people I love, friends, and at least during COVID, almost everybody I've spoken to has expressed that they have had challenges with mental health of varying degrees. I think the next decade will be the mental health decade. I think we're already creeping into it, but the stigma is what is very dear to me, is getting rid of that stigma. So if you are suffering from any mental health disorder or a combination of mental health disorders, you feel as open and free to talk about that as if you had a physical ailment. And then access. I think especially when somebody is in distress, it is incredibly hard to navigate insurance companies, your employer. If you're not employed, where do you go? So those are probably the two most important. All areas of mental health are important to me, and I'll spend the majority of the rest of my life working on these things. I'm in a program right now at Northwestern University to get a master's in counseling so that I can one-on-one help people a few years from now. As luck would have it, my brother was a lawyer at Northwestern. There are many stories about my brother that I will probably tell in time on this channel. But I hope you've enjoyed this. We're on the cusp of a weekend. I don't know if I'll get this up today. Sometimes it takes a while to upload, but I will have it up shortly. I hope you have a nice weekend. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I wish you well, and I will talk to you all soon.